So hi guys, Joe Rogan, who I used to be a huge fan of, his podcast specifically, had Cornel West on his podcast recently. And if you don't know who Cornel West is, he is a prominent socialist, left-wing public figure, basically. And they had like a good conversation, the comments on the clips that I've watched so far, that caught my eye last night because the podcast was just yesterday, filming this on Thursday, were actually surprisingly positive because Joe Rogan holds a weird position in the political spectrum, which is something that we'll probably talk about a lot throughout the life of the show. But Rogan, when he has political guests on his podcast, they're usually right-wingers. So I get excited when Rogan gets a leftist on, a real leftist, to talk about things, because I hope that they will push him to the left. But honestly, I think I should probably just come to terms with the fact that no one who fits into my lane of like anarcho-communism will ever, and like actual like being on the right side of SJW issues, which is not the right side, it's the left wing side, will ever be invited on that show, because apparently Sam Harris has a lot of sway over who actually gets on Joe Rogan. But I wanted to talk about something specific that I noticed, because Cornel West considers himself a socialist, but he draws this false dichotomy between socialism and communism, as if communism is... Basically, he makes the mistake that right-wing libertarians make when they think of communism, in conflating the economic far-leftism with the ultra-authoritarian, totalitarian nature of the government and the regime that exists historically in communist societies, or communist societies. So you know what I mean? To Cornel West, communism means gulags. Communism means no freedom of speech. Communism means confiscation of guns. Communism means no political freedoms. Communism means dictatorship. Communism means totalitarianism to Cornel West. Now, of course, communism doesn't actually mean any of these things. And he seems to... The way he frames it, he seems to think that Marx was a socialist, and Stalin and Lenin and Mao and all those guys, the gang, the boys, were communists, because he seems to be a fan of Marx and a Marxist, and he definitely holds what I would call Marxian views. But this false dichotomy between socialism and communism, and saying socialism is this beautiful thing and communism is just this terrible dictatorship system, it's just incorrect, and it's just dishonest and misleading and disingenuous, and it just leads people into negative thinking about communism and bolsters right-wing anti-communist sentiment more. So I guess I should just probably come to terms with the fact that no one will ever be able to really explain this shit to Rogan in a way where he can really fucking get the truth of the matter. And I should also probably come to terms with the fact that Joe Rogan is a really goddamn agreeable person, temperament-wise, and, his opinion is just gonna go like this, no matter, who he has on, just based on the guest. And that sucks, I think, because he has the biggest podcast in the world, pretty much, and a lot of people listen to him, mainly, gym bros and fucking stoners. But, of course, there's people of all different types who listen to Joe Rogan, obviously. It's a massive audience, but I'm just saying, like, people who are like him. And those people, unfortunately, seem to be kind of a big mob of masculinist, right libertarian people, politically. And that's just ew to me. But I mean, if you let me on Rogan, I could really ask the right questions, you know, because this always pisses me off about like that Rogan is probably still somehow tethered to this intellectual dark web idea as well, and just the cancerousness of that has just been exponentially increased over the last year. And I'm going to make a whole other video about this in the future, but they've basically become their own tribalist group at this point. And they won't have people, like, who would I want to see go on Rogan? ContraPoints. That's number one. Number two, Michael Brooks. Not Sam Cedar, Michael Brooks. Because Sam Cedar will capitulate. Sam Cedar will do what he did when he talked to Destiny and just talk with him instead of, like, fighting for anything. Although, to be fair to Sam, I didn't watch that whole video. We need ContraPoints to go on there to explain to Rogan and his audience what being trans actually means. And we need Michael Brooks to go on there to explain to Rogan and his audience what everything else actually means in a historical perspective, and what Marxism actually means, and what communism actually means. Even though Michael Brooks, I'm pretty sure, is just a socialist and not a communist, but, you know, maybe Hassan. Maybe. I don't know. I can tell you that right now. I don't know who the perfect person would be to convince him. But for some reason, it just really bugs me that Rogan doesn't get this. And I think it's because I felt like an intimate fan connection with him in an almost parasocial way, because I'm as susceptible as anyone else is to that kind of psychology. And it just sucks to diverge from someone you enjoy's opinion and someone who provides you with entertainment. Because that's happening with me in Destiny now, too. But, like I talked about on the podcast. But that's all for now, folks. I just wanted to point that out, that communism doesn't mean totalitarianism necessarily. Because that's like a major point for me. But yeah. I will see you guys in the next video. Don't forget, you can email me at socialrevolution2019@gmail.com and we can talk.